Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. Something to Talk About is sponsored by Fieldstone Memory Care on Bainbridge Island. They're located on Rolling Bay. And if you'd like to tour their beautifully appointed apartments, give them a call. 360-271-2530. That's 360-271-2530. Today is December 10th, which is the anniversary of the United Nations decision to ratify, that's the word I'm looking for, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And we talked a little bit about this earlier in the month, but today we're actually going to read the declaration, and leading us in this is Anne Lovejoy. Hi, Anne, and everybody in the conference room.
I'm going to read the preamble to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Whereas recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Whereas disregard and contempt for human rights have resulted in barbarous acts which have outraged the conscience of mankind and the advent of a world in which human beings shall enjoy freedom of speech and belief and freedom from fear and want has been proclaimed as the highest aspiration of the common people. Whereas it is essential, if man is not to be compelled to have recourse as a last resort to rebellion against tyranny and oppression, that human rights should be protected by the rule of law. Whereas it is essential to promote the development of friendly relations between nations. Whereas the peoples of the United Nations have in the Charter reaffirmed their faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, and in the equal rights of men and women, and other genders, and have determined to promote social progress and better standards in a larger freedom. Whereas member states have pledged themselves to achieve in cooperation with the United Nations the promotion of universal respect for and observance of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Whereas a common understanding of these rights and freedoms is of the greatest importance for the full realization of this pledge. Now, therefore, the General Assembly proclaims this Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples and all nations, to the end that every individual and every organ of society, keeping this declaration constantly in mind, shall strive by teaching and education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance, both among the peoples of member states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction.
Article 1, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood.
Article 2, everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether it be independent, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty.
Article 3. Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the security of person.
Article 4. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms.
Becky?
Article 5. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Article 5, no one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment.
Article 6, everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law.
Read.
Article 7, all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination.
Article 8, everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent tribal national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted them by the Constitution or by law.
Article 9, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile.
Article 10, everyone is entitled to full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his rights and obligations and of any criminal charges against him.
Article 11, 1, everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty according to the law in a public trial at which he has had all the guarantees necessary for his defense. 2, no one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at the time when it was committed, nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time the penal offense was committed.
Article 12, no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with their privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon their honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks.
Article 13, everyone has the right to freedom of movement and residence within borders of each state. Everyone has the right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country or her country or their country.
Article 14, everyone has the right to seek and to enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. Number 2, this right may not be invoked in the case of prosecutions genuinely arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations.
Article 15, number 1, everyone has the right to a nationality. Number 2, no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality nor denied the right to change his nationality.
Article 16, 1, men and women, persons of full age, without any limitation due to race, nationality, or religion, have the right to marry and to found a family. They are entitled to equal rights as to marriage, during marriage, and at its dissolution. Marriage shall be entered into only with the free and full consent of the intending spouses. And 3, the family is the natural and fundamental group unit of society and is entitled to protection by society and the state.
Article 17, number 1, everyone has the right to own property alone as well as in association with others. Number 2, no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of their property.
Article 18, everyone has the right to freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. This right includes freedom to change their religion or belief, and freedom, either alone or in community with others, and in public or private, to manifest their religion or belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance.
Article 19, everyone has the right to freedom of opinion and expression. This right includes freedom to hold opinions without interference and to seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers.
Article 20, 1, everyone has the right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association. 2, no one may be compelled to belong to an association.
Article 21, 1, everyone has the right to take part in the government of their country, directly or through freely chosen representatives. 2, everyone has the right to equal access to public service in their country. 3, the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. This shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage and shall be held by secret vote or by equivalent free voting procedures.
Article 22, everyone as a member of society has the right to social security and is entitled to realization through national effort and international cooperation, and in accordance with the organization and resources of each state of the economic, social, and cultural rights indispensable for his dignity, his, her, or their dignity, and the free development of their personality.
Article 23, 1, everyone has the right to work, to free choice of employment, to just and favorable work conditions, and to protection against unemployment. 2, everyone without any discrimination has the right to equal pay for equal work. 3, everyone who works has the right to just and favorable remuneration, ensuring for himself and his family an existence worthy of human dignity and supplemented, if necessary, by other means of social protection. 4, everyone has the right to form and to join trade unions for the protection of their interests.
Article 24, everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay.
Article 25, 1, everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of themselves and their family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond their control. 2, motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same social protection.
Article 26, number 1, everyone has the right to education. Education shall be free, at least in the elementary and fundamental stages. Elementary education shall be compulsory. Technical and professional education shall be made generally available, and higher education shall be equally accessible to all on the basis of merit. Number 2, education shall be directed to the full development of the human personality and to the strengthening of respect for human rights and fundamental freedoms. It shall promote understanding, tolerance, and friendship among all nations, racial or religious groups, and shall further the activities of the United Nations for the maintenance of peace. Number 3, parents have a prior right to choose the kind of education that shall be given to their children.
Article 27, everyone has the right freely to participate in the cultural life of the community, to enjoy the arts, and to share in scientific advancement and its benefits. 2, everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary, or artistic production of which they are the author.
Article 28, everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration can be fully realized.
Article 29, 1, everyone has duties to the community in which alone the free and full development of their personality is possible. 2, in the exercise of their rights and freedoms, everyone shall be subject only to such limitations as are determined by law, solely for the purpose of securing due recognition and respect for the rights and freedoms of others, and of meeting the just requirements of morality, public order, and the general welfare in a democratic society. 3, these rights and freedoms may in no case be exercised contrary to the purposes and principles of the United Nations.
Article 30, nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein.
Thank you, everybody. Do we want to have a little discussion about it?
May I put a footnote to the reading?
You may.
At the time that this was written, the English language having no neuter case, he was used as neuter. I always loved saying that in faculty meeting full of men. And obviously things have changed. I don't know if the if this will catch up with it. But, if anyone worried about our saying he and his, that's why. It's because it was the ungendered pronoun.
Oh, an interesting fact as well is that Eleanor Roosevelt was directly responsible for the preamble talking about human rights rather than the rights of man, which is what it originally said, because she felt very strongly that that was not an inclusive statement. But it didn't get carried through all the way, as we see. So that's something that possibly future generations may want to adjust a little bit.
Very good.
I was struck by Article 19 about freedom of information, transcending borders, and the idea of how that goes. When this was written, obviously the internet was not extant, and obviously there are a lot of things in this document that are not yet to be realized. But it does seem as though it holds up well with the idea of borders not being where information can be contained.
One thing I thought was interesting when I was doing a little research on this was reading that a Canadian professor of law had said that it's impossible to experience full human rights if a government does not fully and completely support them. And I think we're seeing that's quite true. But I also feel like it's something we need to think about ourselves, how we can uphold human rights wherever we are, in our own community, in our own state, in our own country, as much as possible. I think we think of it as something that should happen through government, but it really happens through individuals too, and that's up to us to carry it forward.
I'm just interested in how it really is talking about a kind of a European social democracy, with voting, the right to free and fair elections and so on, but also a kind of a welfare state where everybody's needs are taken care of and unemployment you're protected against unemployment and so on. I thought, so it's 1948. I don't think this could pass in the US today. I don't know that the US would be a signatory to this under the current regime or the current Republican domination. That's just my political comment.
Oh, that is an interesting comment, Becky. And when I think about the countries that actually embrace most of this, I think they're mostly the Scandinavian countries, really. Which adopted social democracy after World War II largely. And to this day are rated always in the top, at least in the top 10 of the happiest countries on earth, right?
Yep.
Not coincidentally.
Lowest healthcare costs, best outcomes. Right.
That UNICEF is one of my most favorite organizations in the wide world and has been ever since I was a little kid when I started knowing about the UN through Mrs. Roosevelt being on the radio. My mother would listen, and I remember listening with her. The thing that I remember mostly was the educational aspect of things and how important that is, that throughout everyone should have the opportunity for a free education. And wouldn't it be nice if we could get that going here even beyond into the college years? I would hope anyway.
Looking at the website, the drafters are from all over the world. Eleanor Roosevelt, as you said, was the chairperson of the Commission on Human Rights in the US. Dr. Peng Chung-Chang was the vice chair of the Commission on Human Rights from China. Dr. Charles Malik of Lebanon was the rapporteur for the Commission on Human Rights and as I said, from Lebanon. William Hodgkin from Australia served as a member. Hernan Santa Cruz from Chile was a member. René Cassin of France. Alexandra Bogomolov of USSR, Charles Dukes of the United Kingdom, and John Humphrey of Canada.
So was Eleanor Roosevelt the only woman?
Probably.
Yeah, she was.
On that list, yes. I think it would be definitive here. Although it says here, women delegates from various countries played a key role in getting women's rights included in the declaration. Hansa Mehta of India is widely credited with changing the phrase, all men are born free and equal, to all human beings are born free and equal in Article 1. Any final thoughts? Any beginning thoughts?
I have a question. So I noticed the meeting is being recorded, and what are you going to do with it?
All the meetings of the Something to Talk About, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, are posted on YouTube at youtube.com/BI Senior Center.
Very good. Thank you.
I think Olga would like to.
Well, generally speaking, it feels like we've regressed on some of these human rights. Which is a sad commentary. Instead of progressing, we've regressed. But I'd have to study it more carefully to know exactly, which ones, but that was a feeling.
Well, the thought I had too, in addition to the problem of pronouns, that's an easier fix.
Yes, that
It
is.
still sounds wrong to some of us, but we've adapted. But I think our concept of some of these things, like freedom of opinion and expression, our problem now is where is the line that we draw in that with respect to truth?
Dignity.
And I think that, there are issues like that are well worth revisiting in the complexities of today's world, especially with the differences in communication we have now.
Very much so.
Yeah, absolutely. And the ability to disseminate false information so freely didn't exist at that time.
Yeah.
Well, I would say also to disseminate true information. I mean, when I think of the Arab Spring and some of the fights for independence that were occasioned through social media, and it could happen because you could get the word out to so many people instantly, whereas in this time, it took much longer for news, information, ideas to get to people.
Yeah, if they ever did.
Yeah.
So Eleanor, I guess there's a lot included in the last article that says nothing should be interpreted as implying that anyone has a right to engage in any activity aimed at destruction of the rights or freedoms. And I would say promulgating falsehood is probably somewhere in that bucket.
But when you have so many people prepared to believe things that are not true, it's a little hard to say how, in living up to these obligations, even as individuals, how do we function?
Yeah.
I don't have the answer, by the way. No, I'm just, this has always been my job, is just to raise the question.
Yes.
Oh, thank you, Eleanor.
Well, my students used to write down what I said as though it were true. I love that. They think I didn't just make that up.
Well, and I think too that we forget how powerful it is when the work that we do in our local neighborhood or just with each other, that you don't know when that is, that we cannot solve the problems of the whole world, but we can do what we can where we are. And I think that gets overlooked sometimes about how powerful that can be. And so I would just ask each of us in this time that seems so unbearable, and it has been, and it seems like it's slowly maybe gonna, move forward some, that we have a lot to do, that we do what we can where we are. And sometimes amazing things happen.
Well, it makes me think of that Margaret Mead said, the world has never changed except when a handful of citizens have taken it upon themselves to make it change. And that's our responsibility, you're right. So thank you, everybody.
Well, I was going to say if they don't have guns, but now if the negative forces have guns, then everything else goes. It's a real serious issue.
Well, and I think it is, I think guns and there are things, but I still think that there are so many, there's just small things. I'm an optimist.
I know,
But, and I think that if we have to look at that and we have to hold on to it, or we will just be so overwhelmed with what's bad that we can't even see a little bit of what's good and what we do. So I'm asking us to hold on to some of the optimism.
right. I would like to with
Thank
you,
you,
Rita,
Rita.
that the other is possible, you know. you have to-
When I was a kid, I had a Quaker neighbor who was wonderful, and I remember going to her house when I was probably 8 or 9, really upset about some of the civil rights things I was seeing on television, in the news. And she said, well, dearie, we don't all get to change the world, but you can always brighten your corner.
Right.
And as a kid, I thought, oh, that really made sense to me. And I still love that we can always brighten our corner, however small our corner might happen to be.